trying to get into the dirt, it's because all their skin is like, their whole skin needs sunglasses. Because they're like, ah, it's so bright out here. If your experiment, we're hoping that you will put it on, you will mention us on Instagram or Facebook at WeCompost2. That is our nonprofit organization whose goal is to teach about on-site composting and to build communities below and above the soil. Okay, so the first question is, do worms sleep?
Yeah. Right?
No.
Yes, no, yeah. Okay, so unfortunately, the guy who teaches me says, I don't know. That's his answer. But just in case they do, let's give them a bed. So here's the bedding. So you do kind of well. Okay, here's the bedding. This is, it can be cocoa core, shredded cardboard, finished compost, partially finished compost, just some kind of, it could be really small, broken up, dead material. Like if you had like wildflowers and they kind of died while standing and they turned yellow, you could break them up and that could be part of the bedding too. So any browns, dead things, or cardboard, because paper is kind of a dead thing. Okay, so the bedding is browns, and that's too because you want half browns, and then you want mostly browns in your worm compost because that's where they live, and then you put some food in there, but they don't want to be surrounded by only food. If you surround them with only food, then your bin will start getting really stinky, and that's because there's you're getting too much bacteria in there and not enough oxygen. The bacteria there's so much food, the bacteria are multiplying so fast that they're multiplying faster than air can come into the cup.
I'd like to talk about fermentation, also called anaerobic respiration. Sometimes cells need to produce energy whenever oxygen is not present. A solution to this is called fermentation, and it provides energy for cells without using oxygen. It is also called anaerobic respiration. It does produce energy, but it is less efficient than aerobic respiration that uses oxygen. There are two types of fermentation, alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. The first type I'd like to talk about, alcoholic fermentation, occurs in plants and yeast whenever oxygen is not present. The cell takes glucose, technically pyruvic acid, and it is converted into ethanol, which is a type of alcohol, and then some carbon dioxide and energy. This is how many wines and beer are created.
Sleep. I don't know, but just in case it's in the bed, here's a little blanket. We each get a little worm blanket. So that I'm just putting it there for now, but eventually we'll have to take it off because we're going to add more things. But that's what it's going to look like when you're done. And then you can have a lid or not. You don't need it, but you mostly need the worm blanket. And I'll tell you why. Okay, question 2. Are worms cool?
Yeah.
Yes, they are. They like to be kept between 55 and 85 degrees.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So that's why we never want to keep our bins in direct sunlight, because if we do, if out here at least it'll be 90 degrees, it'll be even a little bit hotter in the bin perhaps. They'll cook. If you have a big worm bin, especially if they're in black plastic, attracts the heat and the sun. They'll like have a worm like mass exodus, and you'll see all these worms crawling out, and it looks really scary and sad. So,
It's like they're burning.
Yeah, they're too hot, too sunny. So. I'm going to protect them from the heat and from the sun. So I have 2 worm bins in my bedroom, which is kind of strange. People tell me. And then I do have one outside, but it's under a tree. Oh, and then I just check on it every day, and I have a little thermometer in it, so I can always make sure that they never go above 85 degrees, because that's the hottest they should really be. Now, or if you do the subsurface, you don't really have to worry about it. You can put a thermometer just in case, just to check on them, but underground, they're probably going to be fine. Okay, cool. Next question. Do worm houses need windows?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
They have to crawl out.
Any type of worm house is going to need windows. If it's below ground, it doesn't matter as much, but if it's above ground, they need oxygen. So with this one, when you get home, you want to poke 2 holes down here. And all worm houses need drainage for water, and they'll need but they'll need drainage just in case. But ideally, if you see water dripping out of here, that means there's too much water in it. So no water should be dripping out. It needs to be as wet as a moist, wrung out sponge all the time. So then you just spray the top a little bit. The water goes down, but hopefully never out. So that's why we need windows in the bottom and all around the sides just to get the oxygen in there, because worms are aerobes just like us and our pets. They need oxygen too. Second question. Worms are vegan with added dietary restrictions. But it makes it kind of easy to remember the vegans. But with added dietary restrictions. So what do vegans eat?
Everything that doesn't come from animals.
Yeah, so no, I don't know if worms can eat honey though. They might be able to eat honey, but they don't eat protein, so they can't. No milk.
Because y'all lactose intolerant, that's what it is.
Lactose what? Intolerant. Lactose intolerant. It means that Super Dude is harmed by dairy products. Like ham? No, ham is meat. Dairy products contain milk. Items like butter, cream cheese, and
Yo! Y'all gonna treat Super Dude. Wait.
We don't really put liquids in a worm bin anyway, because most of the fruits and vegetables have liquids in them. So sometimes you might spray them with water, but you don't have to. No drinks, I wouldn't recommend ever. But yeah, so I put cheese in a worm bin once. And then, have you ever seen like a pearl necklace? It's kind of like this shape. That's what the worm looked like after it ate cheese. It ruined the digestive tract and its body completely deformed, and it died. So worms will die if they eat cheese. Because I was like, oh, little leftover salad, just put it in there. No.
Yeah.
So mostly raw veggies and fruits. They'll be the best. And then banana peels are cool, but they will attract fruit flies. For some reason, like I think they lay their eggs in the skin, in the peel. So I get a lot of fruit flies, but I've heard that if you don't use the banana peels, you won't get nearly as many fruit flies. And that's also why when we feed, we'll move the food to the side, or move the bedding to the side, put some food in here, and then cover back up, and then you'll get less flies too.
Okay.
Okay, so that was. Okay, so what are some foods that worms can eat? Kale, broccoli, carrots, apples, bananas. Yeah, okay. The coffee grounds.
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes, yep. Oh, dietary restrictions, I forgot. We don't give them a lot of citrus. Let me actually read what are the restrictions. I don't give them salt. I don't give them citrus. No meat. They'll die if they eat meat. There's probably another one. I forget. I don't really add oils either. So I don't do a lot of cooked food. I mostly do raw. I should call them raw vegans with added dietary restrictions. Okay. Worms take bites of your food scraps, but they're actually getting their nutrients from the bacteria and fungi and other organisms that they're eating. So the question is, are bacteria good or bad? Yeah, there's good and bad bacteria. So like there's bacteria, like if I don't wash my hands, I might have like E. coli on my hands or something. I don't know. I don't know where that comes from actually. I think E. coli is everywhere, but there's some harmful versions of it. And then there's good bacteria, the kind in our gut microbiome, right? And it's supposed to be good. It helps us digest our food. So there's good and bad bacteria, but the cool thing about worms is their bodies are covered in beneficial bacteria. The human and plant beneficial bacteria, I should say, because maybe those bacteria are beneficial somewhere else, but not to humans and plants. So their job in the ecosystem is to clean the soil. And so like when animals poop on the ground, there's maybe some like parasites or pathogens in my poop. Like if a worm were to eventually eat it, everything that goes through the worm or everything that touches the worm actually is clean. So like scientists have done experiments where they smear a petri dish with E. coli or salmonella, and then they have a worm crawl across it, and then they put take the worm off, put the petri dish under the microscope, and wherever the worm crawled, there is no more pathogen. Yeah, that's why I was like, look, it's like a hand sanitizer for my hands. When I was holding the worms were super slimy when I was holding them to smell. So yeah. They're really clean. So that's the one good thing about holding them is like it makes it less scary. And the second thing that makes it less scary is I should actually do worms have teeth? No, they don't have teeth. So they don't bite. Okay, so because they eat bacteria and they don't have teeth, we have two things here. We have good garden soil. Now, 1 teaspoon of good garden soil has how much bacteria? What do you think?
10,000 or something.
Yeah, really, it has about 1 billion. So if I were to grab a handful of soil, okay, actually, can you put a handful of soil in your hand? I want to ask you a question. This is fun. Okay. There's about how many people are on planet Earth?
7 billion?
Yeah, about 7 billion. There's about 7 billion living things in your hand right now. I don't know, I just like the idea of that. It's kind of cool.
That
it's
is
like,
cool.
wow,
Yeah.
I'm holding an entire world of people or organisms.
Church saying he's got the whole.
Yes, it's a good biblical reference. So yeah, so there's about 1 billion bacteria in a tablespoon of soil, but there's other organisms too, but 1 billion bacteria. So worms eat bacteria every day. So, but we only want to feed them 1 million. So if we were to feed them 1 million, I'm gonna try to only get 1 million on my spoon. When would I have to stop if the whole teaspoon was 1 billion? This is a fun math question for kids. We're always trying to stem it up, you know? Add the stem.
Like a tenth or something?
Yeah, like actually it's 1,000. 1 million is 1,000. 1,000 times 1 million is 1 billion.
Oh, yeah.
So 1,000th of a teaspoon is probably like that much, right? Maybe even less. So 3 grains of sand will have 1 million bacteria. I think I just gave you 5 million. Okay, so yeah, we'll have to add 1 million to each of you. Oh, I almost added like a
More.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I might as well give you more, right? Well, I don't want it to go anaerobic though. They probably won't. They can't. They won't overpopulate as long as they don't have too much green foods. Okay. So we added 1 million bacteria. Okay. And now we need to add the sand. Okay. If worms don't have teeth, how do they chew? They're kind of like chickens.
So they just gulp it all down?
They gulp it down and then they have a gizzard and they have to eat the sand.
And it like grinds it up.
Yep. So there you go. You need some sand. So whenever you make a worm bin at home, a bigger one, and you eventually make a bigger one if you do, you need some sand, you need some soil, just to inoculate it just a little bit. And then also worms need calcium to digest their food. So what are some foods that you could feed worms that would give them calcium? Because there's some foods, just vegan foods, you could feed them. It's okay if you don't know, because I didn't know. I don't even know for sure if I'm saying the right one.
Eggshells?
Yeah, eggshells.
Couldn't you use
There's some eggshells, but you only use a pinch, because if you add too much eggshells, they will melt. The worms will melt.
Really?
It's very basic, supposedly. This is according to Oregon State University. I don't know if there's a document online, but Oregon State University, they said too much calcium carbonate and your worms will melt. I never tried it myself.
Would it raise like the pH or something?
Yeah. Yep. It'll raise it. But you were about to ask another question.
Could you use ground up like crab meal or seashells, like shrimp?
Oh, like oyster shells?
Yeah, something like that.
Probably the shells, as long as it's not the body, I think. I think the body, if there's like protein in it, I think that would be bad for worms. But I don't know. Worms eat, it's like weird because like in nature, I don't think they eat the things that are bad for them. Or maybe other things eat those things first. Like maybe flies get to the dead body before the worm does, and maybe that's why the worms don't get sick. But when I've actually fed worms the meat or cheese, they died. And their bodies looked horrendous. So I think in the bin they get a little confused or something, I don't know. So yeah, so you'll add a little bit of, you could add eggshells, or I think you can, I think broccoli and kale leafy greens have calcium in them too. Okay, next question. Let's see, do worms have a nose?
Do they have a nose?
Yeah, do worms have a nose? What do you think?
I would think so.
No? No, I said
They
no.
gotta smell where
Says-
food is.
Well, if they don't, then how do they breathe?
Through their skin?
Yeah, they breathe through their skin.
Earthworms breathe through their skin. They have no lungs or other respiratory organs, but that's really for the best, as they do spend most of their time underground surrounded by soil. Their skin is no match for rain, however, as earthworms are prone to drowning.
And so they always need to be moist, so they breathe through their skin. And so we'll spray 2 to 3 sprays every 2 to 3 days. Was that one not working? Here you go. 2 to 3 sprays every 2 to 3 days. You just want to make sure that your bin is as moist as a wrung out sponge. So you might have to, just as long as it's kind of moist, and it's got to be more moist than this. This is like not moist enough sure it's not that dry. And that's the bedding I just put in there, so you actually might have to moisten it a little bit extra today.
And did y'all put like newspaper and stuff in there?
Yeah, it's newspaper, it's compost and newspaper mixed together, and maybe some wood chips. We did shredded cardboard and shredded newspaper, but not many people can get a hold of shredded cardboard. You have to get a 20-sheet shredder, paper shredder to shred cardboard. Okay, so yeah, keep it as moist as a wrung out sponge, and then water it like 2 to 3 times a week. Okay. Next question: do worms have eyes?
No.
Okay, they do. Yes and no. So they don't have actual eyeballs like us, but their whole skin is like an eyeball. So when they're out in the sunlight and they're wiggling around, they're trying to get into the dirt. It's because all their skin is like, their whole skin needs sunglasses because they're like, it's so bright out here. So that's why they're always trying to stay underground and away from the light. Because one, that's their home, but two, I guess they evolved that way or whatever. They're just naturally that way, and they don't want to be in the light. So their skin is very sensitive to the sun. So it has the same cells in their skin that we have in our eyeballs. They don't see shapes and stuff, but they do see shadows. Okay, next question. Are worms dirty?
Yes.
No.
Yes and no, you're both right, because they're technically crawling through dirt, right?
Yeah.
You can't deny that. But like no, because they're not covered in harmful bacteria.
Yeah.
So good. So I will give you 4 worms. Worms double in population every 3 months. You will have 8 worms at the end of 4 months. 3 months. Sorry. So now you have to do your pledge. And before we do the pledge, did you know that Charles Darwin studied worms for the last 20 years of his life? And people just thought he was like going old and senile. They're like, why is he studying worms? Yeah.
That's crazy. Because that is like kind of random.
Yeah, and he's like, there's something important about these worms. They're like, he's crazy. They're like, he discovered something good once, but now he's like, I don't know about this guy. He's into worms. But yeah, he studied them for the last 20 years of his life, and he knew that there was like, he was convinced that they were intelligent, and there was something important about what they were doing. So anyway, so we tell you to raise your right hand and say, I promise.
I had no idea this was a cult.
Although I will say the term cult is a little judgmental.
I would say the same thing, yeah.
Not knowing the full doctrine.
I promise.
I've been involved in a number of cults, both as a leader and a follower. You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader.
To take care of my worms.
To take care of my worms.
Feed the worms my food scraps.
To feed the worms my food scraps.
And to spray them with water.
To spray them with water.
2 to 3 times a week.
2 to 3 times a week.
And love my worms forever.
And love my worms forever.
Got him!
Thank you. Oh, you know what? I did this in the last demo too. I forgot to do the food one. Because I told you that they're vegans, but I didn't have you feed them. So I'm sorry, I screwed up. I missed this step twice in a row. So once a week, you will feed them 1 tablespoon of food scraps, or a teaspoon. A heaping teaspoon is fine. So this is coffee grounds. They can eat coffee grounds. So you just kind of put them in and then cover. So coffee grounds once a week, but you can also do, but just this volume once a week. Carrot tops, apple, whatever you want. Vegan food. And then you cover up your bin, keep them out of the light. And then what you can do for now is you could do it like this while you're traveling. And then keep them out of the heat.
Okay.
Oh, but I didn't put the worms in there. Oh, good. Oh man, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. Okay, now I need to give you 4 worms. 1, 2. It actually doesn't matter if you have exactly 4, just as long as you count them before when you start. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't separate them because one won't leave, so I'm just going to give you 5 because I don't want. Oh, actually, that one did separate at the very last moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you guys can have a contest.
Keep them healthier longer.
Yeah. Okay, and you might even see worm eggs in there eventually. They look like little fish bait, like little round balls. I saw one earlier today, but we took it out. I don't see anything in here right now.
And the smaller worms that are attached to them, are those baby worms?
Okay, so there's 2 types of worms. The baby ones will be the really So here's like a kid worm and a toddler worm. And then a baby one will look like this but smaller, but then there's white worms in there. Those are called Enchytraeids, and that's another type of worm. And they just show up in worm bins a lot. They're a sign that John has been feeding a little bit too much greens. So, but they're not bad. I think some people really like them too, but we just don't have pure just one worm. You're gonna have other stuff in there too. You're gonna have little springtails, maybe some little beetles.
I've used nematodes before, and it helps.
Yeah, beneficial nematodes. That's awesome.
See, I was gonna ask you.
Yeah, they
so
do
I
help.
just got this one in.
Would those appear in here like that naturally?
And,
Or?
Yeah,
so their
they have nematodes in
instructions
there.
say, okay, they gave me
Yeah,
cocoa
because there's
part
it's like
and
the the circle
the
like the Lion King where there's like the lion eats the antelope.
Hey, I tell her that. I will tell you that.
Yeah, the lion eats the antelope and the antelope eats the grass because the lion dies and becomes the grass.
And then the leaf
So,
can come out.
So like
and get drained.
so
And
the
then
bottom
they said I
feeders,
could
the
also
rabbits.
sometimes pour water
The
into
rabbits
it
are
to
the
make
bacteria
tea.
and fungi,
But just don't let
kind
them
of,
soak.
and then
Um,
protozoa eat the
So do
bacteria.
you think that's
The
a good way?
nematodes eat
Or
the
I
protozoa.
was reading
And
in
earthworms eat
there,
the nematodes,
about,
and so
like,
it's always who's eating who.
But
But then the earthworms, it's a web though, it's not a chain because earthworms also eat bacteria and earthworms eat protozoa. So it's like whoever a worm can suck up in their mouth, they'll eat anything.
I only have like 3, but at the bottom it does get a little stinky.
But remember, compost is where
I don't like putting a lot of water in there.
where death
like,
and
my
life
boss even
meet.
tells people to
Is
like
where
put
the
pork in there.
compost is
Just 'cause
happening, and that's where
you don't
those
need it.
soil
You can also
microbes
make
are
tea with
turning
castings.
decay into new life.
I don't know
And that's
why they give you. I guess perlite is.
So to block the hole, I guess.
My boss does
Hopefully,
it.
I'll
like
get
using
experience.
perlite. It's just not very, like,
I want to learn how to grow my own
but I can
mushrooms,
give you
like
bedding.
lion's mane mushrooms and stuff
So
like
yeah,
that.
if you want to put it in there,
Yeah,
just
and then
do that.
here's
Well,
that how to take out your worms. You can keep this if you want.
Okay.
And this is if you want to post your results, like we kept our worms for 3 months. If you want to share it on social media.
Yeah, I have like a small YouTube channel, and I saw this place, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna come over here and check it out.
Awesome. We are we're trying to. I mean, we just got our EIN. We're a nonprofit. Our nonprofit name is called We Compost Too.
Okay.
Because our bodies compost as well. So at first his logo was a zombie.
And people didn't get it.
Yeah, nobody got it, but that's why it's called We Compost Too, like as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can harvest that one.
So it'll be easier.
Yeah, that's
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that's what I
Thank
think.
you. So the tower.
Yeah, this was really informative. He said they were trying to knock this place down. The city was trying to knock this place down. Really? So as many people as they can get to come here, sign a petition, make sure they keep this place.
Yeah, I think over there was the
It's gonna be cool to make my own worm castings. This reminds me of home. Like going to the country, you smell that manure and stuff. This is a worm bed. You see they got all the food that they're not gonna keep, and the worms should just come up and nibble on it. Or if something else nibbles on it, poops in there, the worm will eat its poop. It's crazy.
He said that they were trying to take this whole place down?
Yeah, they're trying to make a parking lot or something out of it. Something stupid. I think we can come back here.